Stocks struggling on Wall Street this morning after yesterday's volatility that did end with a gain for the major averages. Now, today, the Federal Reserve begins a two-day meeting on interest rates. Investors widely expect another aggressive increase to try to slow the economy and bring down inflation. Home builders started work on more homes in August than expected. It was a surprise. As mortgage rates briefly pulled back, more people were walking through model homes. Today, home buyers are facing rates just shy of 6.5% for a 30-year fixed-rate loan, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association. Ford out with an earnings warning, blaming supply chain pain. It says supplier costs will be $1 billion more than expected. Norwegian Cruise Line shares ticked higher today. The stock was upgraded by Truist because fewer travelers were canceling their reservations and then rebooking at lower prices. Jessica Ettinger, CNBC.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
I wanted to know why some people who get COVID-19 get it so bad. I found out it may be because they have a high risk factor, such as heart disease, diabetes, being overweight, smoking, and asthma. Even if symptoms feel mild, these factors can increase your risk of COVID-19 turning severe. So if you're at high risk and test positive, there are things you can do, like asking your healthcare provider if an authorized oral treatment is right for you. Learn about an option at treatcovid19.com. This message is sponsored by Pfizer.
Are you underpaid and overworked? Is a living wage and employee benefits like affordable health care more of a dream than a reality for you and your family? If so, it's time to form a union. Don't be denied the wages and benefits you deserve. Come together in a union with the power of numbers. A union is not a privilege, it's your right, and it will make a difference. Contact Teamsters Local 1932, a powerful and successful labor union in San Bernardino, by visiting teamsters1932.org/organize to start today.
Located in the heart of San Bernardino, California, the Teamsters Local 1932 Training Center is designed to train workers for high-demand, good-paying jobs in various industries throughout the Inland Empire. If you want a pathway to a high-paying job and the respect that comes with a union contract, visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org. One of the best ways to build a healthier local economy is by shopping locally. Teamster Advantage is a shop local program started by Teamster Local 1932 that has brought together hundreds of locally owned businesses to provide discounts for residents who make shopping locally their priority. Everything from restaurants like Corky's to fun times at SB Raceway and much, much more. If you're not currently a Teamster and you want access to these local business discounts, contact Jennifer at 909-889-8377, extension 224. Give her a call. That number again is 909-889-8377, extension 224.
Labor unions built the middle class, and the middle class built America. That's the message from Teamsters Local 1932, a strong and successful labor union based in San Bernardino that represents over 14,000 hardworking people across the Inland Empire. The Teamsters are ready to help you organize for better pay, increased benefits, and improved working conditions. Reach out to Teamsters 1932 at teamsters1932.org/organize to speak with an organizer today.
This is KCAA.
Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. I think my favorite story of the day that I'm going to lead with, Republicans showing their hand. And I love an anonymous Republican has come forth to kind of break the news, let the soften the blow a little bit, kind of let corporate America know what's coming, because according to a report by The Intercept, Republicans are planning to launch a number of investigations into their friends at the Chamber of Commerce. And you go, why would they do that? Because why would they go after the biggest companies and their biggest donors? Why would they bite the hand that feeds them? Well, first, foremost, this is not your parents' or grandparents' Republican Party. These are extremists. These are crazy people. These are people who they hate the environment, because when you delve a little bit deeper, it's only in the ESG investment sector, the environmental, social, and governance sector. Those companies that are environmentally, socially, or wanting democracy, folks. Those companies that are saying, hey, we like things the way they used to be. If Republicans, you could maybe tone down the crazy. It's bad for business. It's bad for profits. All this division, all this hatred, all this chaos, all this talk of violence and civil war, and all. It's bad for business, bad for profits. And well, the current Republicans are going, no, we want crazy. No, we likey. And it's gonna. There's part of me that goes, I actually hope Republicans take the House in November. Now, walk with me here a little bit. Just so we get a taste of insanity, because I think 2024 we could go full on, bonkers. But I think a taste of the insanity. Now, understand, that means 2 years of getting nothing done, 2 years of Marjorie Trainwreck Green as, the chairperson of, name the committee that you don't want her on. But Republicans are trying to make a play for working people. And I've been saying this, I've been telling you this for months, actually a couple of years now, that they're going to make a play for working people. And understand, it's a Trojan horse. Because all of the things that they say they want are anti-working people, because at the end of it, Republicans hate working people. That's the reality. Their policies are bad for working people. And here, we only have 50 days till Election Day. 50 days to wake up to the reality that, well, one, Republicans hate working people, and two, their policies are horrible. And these aren't, for my lever pullers, for my people who say, my grandpappy was Republican, my pappy was Republican, for you, this ain't grandpappy's party. These are crazy people. These are people who are sore losers, poor losers, and people who want to destroy what grandpappy fought for. Because you're seeing these headlines of a good number of Republican candidates. They're not gonna believe the election results, because they should win. They believe they're gonna win. And look, I believed every time I played anything, any sport, any debate, and anything, got into any fights, no matter what it was, you win some, you lose some. I now, thinking Republican mentality, never lost a thing. Now, granted, the scoreboard was the bloody nose, but never lost a thing. I guess that's the new Republican point of view, and this is frightening, because it's taking us in a dangerous direction, and there is scary stuff going around, my good friends. Because over the weekend we had a couple of interesting rallies going on in my state of Pennsylvania. The Nazi wannabe gubernatorial candidate Doug Mastriano held a little groomer rally, and well, I guess the best thing I can do is just play the clip now. This guy's given his little spiel. And a big part of it is, seems like a Nazi rally to me. But here, take a look for yourself at just how well. Here it is.
And we'll do that by putting our right hand in the air on the count of three. If you're willing to do this, can you say what they said at Gettysburg? when you see us lined up as one, sweep down the hill to victory. On the count of three, we'll bring our hand down as one. Father, I pray that indeed Pennsylvania will be like Little Round Top, and America will have a new birth of liberty. As one on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. As one! Thank you.
Wow. The whole the Hitler salute, the Sieg Heil salute, they're front and center, and they had the same one at the Trump rally. It seems they're not even trying to hide the fact that they're Nazis. I mean, human trafficking, the raised hand salutes, kind of, I don't know, giving it away a little bit. And some of the talk that we're hearing, I'm actually waiting. This is one of those things, I'm actually waiting for them to start handing out swastikas on a stick and calling them windmills at their rallies, handing out to all the kids little swastikas and then calling them, the freedom spinners or some kind of, those idiotic fidget spinners. We're going to turn those into swastikas and hand them out to kids. And just when you thought there could be nothing dumber than a fidget spinner, a Nazi fidget spinner, brought to you by Fascist Incorporated. That's where we're heading. And you listen to the rhetoric that coming out of these rallies, you listen to the talk, the hatred for our country, and the want to take it to some place that has never been. That's the frightening part of where we are. And look, if you're registered to vote, make sure you're registered to vote. If you're not registered to vote, get registered to vote. And if you know somebody, get them registered to vote. Because this election, kind of a big deal. Now, as I said, you look at the rallies. You had the Mastriano Nazi rally here in my state. You had in Ohio. You had Trump doing his little song and dance, complete with the QAnon music, and they're saying, is Trump embracing QAnon? Yes, he has been embracing the crazy kooks, because look, as the walls close in. As I always say, a drowning man will grab an anchor if you throw it to him, because looking for the last thing. This is where he's heading. Now, what's interesting is even he's getting crazier, and you go, how's that possible? But you look at the people in the crowd adorned with their paraphernalia, the "Let's Go Brandon" shirts and the blank Biden shirts, and you see them everywhere. And I had a conversation the other day with someone who had his F Biden shirt on and actually wrote the word out on his lunchbox. And I'm like, you have kids, right? What would make you do this? Look, as much as I don't like Donald Trump, and I never have, you would never see me do that. If nothing more than as an example for my kids. What kind of an example? Now, these folks talk about groomers and the teachers are all teaching them bad. What kind of an example are these quote-unquote Christian parents when they do the kind of things that we see them do? And the rhetoric that they're flying around, spiritual warfare, and we hear about the Noble Plan. Steve Bannon the other day, he had his cancer moonshot comment. Somehow that by Biden doing something to help us figure out how to cure cancer, that was a covert op. That's a covert op to eliminate the human race. Am I the only one who looks at these folks and goes, please, mental health care now, quickly? But evidently, according to Steve Bannon, human race 2.0, because we're going to erase, and then something about the economic forum and the grand plan and replacing you with godless liberals who want to live forever. I mean, it's this just idle ramblings of insane people presented in, flashy form, and a bunch of people out there raising their hands and cheering, which is frightening. And then giving it some legitimacy where you march around a disgraced general like Michael Flynn, heading up to these QAnon conferences and these turning point conferences, all of these brainwash sessions, talking about you need to charge the machine gun nests because we're not going to line up as Joe Biden and the evil Democrats and their schools fill us with knowledge. We're at a frightening moment because all of them are talking about violence. All of them are talking about using Christianity and the spiritual warrior and their religious freedom. Isn't it interesting when they talk about religious freedom? It's only their religion and their freedom. It's never anybody else's, and never anybody who doesn't want to participate in their crazy religion. Is there going to be a time where when they take power, you're going to have to join? You're going to have to be in the club, or you can't be trusted. This is frightening times. Now, look, I saw this story. I got pitched a guest thing from and I always love this, the American Family Association, whom the folks at the Southern Poverty Law Center have dubbed basically a terrorist group. But they're lamenting at the fact that young people are walking away from religion, and you look at how crazy they are. And you go, no wonder. I hope they're not just walking. I hope they're full-on sprinting from the kind of craziness that is being spewed by people like these groups. And there are hundreds of these, all under the name of good godliness, all under the name of spirituality, having a great awakening. I'm telling you, if you're not registered to vote, this is our future. And there will be no tolerance. First, I go back to the Pastor Niemöller quote. First they came for the Jews, and I wasn't a Jew, said nothing. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I said nothing because I wasn't one of those. And then they came for name the next, name the other. And by the time they came for me, there was no one left, because eventually they come for everyone. Love to hear your thoughts, though. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Love to hear your thoughts. Also, give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. You concerned about all of this, Hitler high fives and all this stuff? I want to hear it. Quick break. Right back. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Yeah, I still like my friend, Nazi fidget spinners. Yeah, they're going to be handing those out to kids. You just wait. Just wait. The schools are going to be full of good God-fearing Nazi fidget spinners. Jeez, it's crazy. Here's some good news. We found out the origin of the word caravans. Evidently, and this I found this out over the weekend. According to Donald Trump, he claims that he invented the word caravans. The best words, only the best words by the smartest people and the best people. He came up with the term, he says. He said that was my term, and fake news, that was his term. And a lot of other terms we came up. Crooked Hillary, he's so proud of that. And again, fake news was his. Alternative facts, that was theirs. What used to be lies, all of that stuff. And, Prime the Pump also was his. Never mind, the John Maynard Keynes and all that. But yeah, he came up with all of these things. He alone. Yes. Let's go to the phones. We got Alice on line 1. Alice, how are we doing today?
We're doing. How about yourself?
I'm good. You looking forward to getting your Nazi child fidget spinner?
Oh, I'm agreeing with you on that. Though they might want to keep in mind that every, and I do mean every, civilization that has used the swastika has come to a bad end.
Let's hope.
And that, no, I'm totally serious, because actually the swastika, if you reverse the direction of the little bends of the arms, I guess I want to call that, it is a symbol that was used by, like, some of the Hindu cultures and whatnot. But every civilization that has reversed it has really come to a bad end.
Yeah, see, this is where I go, yeah, I hope our civilization doesn't come to a bad end. I hope we're smart enough to learn from history and go, let's not continue down this path. Let's nip this in the bud. I think it was Churchill who said, there were a bunch of times where we could have stopped fascism, where we could have stopped Hitler and Mussolini, but we didn't. Maybe we could learn those lessons.
Well, you would think, and we all know that particularly what do I want to call it, Christian nationalism, I guess, has been on the rise since, the end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s.
Yeah.
And I have noticed, and I'm going, I think it's a little bit too late. Now, all of a sudden, I've noticed that there's a number of, what do I want to call it, mainstream Christian leaders that have come out and are trying to rebuke these people. And I'm thinking, you should have done this 40, 50 years ago. It's a little bit too late now.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But here's the thing, that old school kind of religion for for your soul and actual beliefs, that doesn't sell. It's not as profitable, not as glitz and glamour. Doesn't put as much money in the plate, man.
I know, and I'm just now reading a book that was written by a minister that used to be an evangelical. In fact, was raised in it, I guess. And then when he actually started reading the Bible, he realized a few things. And he was saying, that it was all about money and power and not about the Christian religion. And I thought, I could have told you that.
Yeah. We need a modern-day Martin Luther to kind of tell us what's in the book again.
I guess. I mean, I just am flabbergasted. Like I said, it's almost like, I call them alt-Christians myself. And the reason why I call them alt-Christians is because the only thing they seem to have in common with mainstream Christianity is the Jesus figure. And it's just the name. It's not following any of his teachings or anything, I mean, I guess their Jesus is dressed
in a Brooks Brothers suit, got a Brooks Brothers suit, a six-figure bank account, and packing heat, baby.
No, I more see him dressed in sort of like a cross between Rocky and Rambo, but wearing the camouflage, carrying a Bible in one hand with his little AK-47 in the other, and the flag draped down over his shoulders.
You mean that image that I see people flying the Trump, they put Trump's head on a Rambo body? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
All right, I got the image.
Yep. I mean, I'm going, well, that must be, your Jesus, because, and then they're coming off with, I guess there's a church out east somewhere here in Pennsylvania, must be near your neck of the woods, that it's some sort of, I forget the name of it, but it's some sort of right-wing evangelical, and they actually have them come in and bring their guns and bless their guns and ammunition, and I'm not even joking.
Yeah, no, that's up north. Those the Moon guy, the Reverend Moon guy. They actually have crowns with bullets in it, and you have to have your AR-15. Absolutely, yeah, that happened, and those people are crazy.
Whack jobs.
That's it, and frightening. But hey, it's their right to be as crazy as they want to be until their rights infringe on the rest of us. But their numbers are growing, and that's kind of frightening as well.
Well, it is, and like I said to you before, I'm hearing figures. Oh, it's only 18%. of the Republican Party. And I'm thinking, have you been out there lately, folks, and talked to these people? Because, I'm thinking more it's along the lines of, at least 75%.
It doesn't matter to me what percentage of the Republican parties are crazy right now. It's 100% of them right now seem to be on the policy wagon that's going to lead us down this road. You've got the lever pullers who, Grandpappy was a Republican, Daddy was a Republican, I'm going to be a Republican, without actually thinking about what the policies and the direction that they're going to take our states and our country. I look here in my state of Pennsylvania. We got a guy running for governor who wants to turn this state into the Florida of the Northeast with all of its horrible policies and all of its anti-worker policies and environmental it would be horrible to see Mastriano.
Well, I know, and I live in Pennsylvania too. Only I live on the opposite end of where you live, and our little Royal County. I'm just going, oh my God, they've all lost their pea-picking minds. I mean, all of a sudden, our little county on the population, I think at the last time I checked, and the numbers they had were for 2019, it was like 33,000. And all of a sudden, our county commissioners decided that we are a Second Amendment sanctuary. They're going to outlaw abortion. We don't even have a hospital. We have a first aid station, basically. And I'm thinking, how the hell are you going to outlaw abortion when we don't even have any place that would do them? They've all lost their minds, Rick.
No, you're spot on. Alice, I appreciate the call. Always great stuff.
Have a good evening.
Thanks so much, Alice. I mean, the sad reality is their numbers are growing, or their volume is growing because, well, they do the media stuff very well, and our corporate-controlled media, they keep trying to fear us into everything else. We've been fixated on the DeSantis, flying migrants from one place to another, fixated on it. And look, that just plays into how much they love him. Now there's an investigation in Texas into DeSantis and the operation to bring those 50 Venezuelan migrants from Texas to Martha's Vineyard. And look, he's thrilled with it. Now Trump very angry. Trump's ticked because, well, that was his stunt. He wanted to do that. DeSantis is stealing his cruelty. And remember, at the end of the day, it's the cruelty that's the main objective. It's who can be the worst, it seems to me, on that side of the aisle. And I hate thinking like that. I wish there were good, decent, honest Eisenhower, Reagan-type Republicans. Even Nixon. I mean, Nixon, how bad is it when I start pining for the days of Nixon and Reagan? Love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Trump invents the best words. If you got any thoughts, I want to hear it. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, our good friend Jeff Hauser is going to be here from the Revolving Door Project. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people on this talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1929. That was the day a mistrial was declared in the case of 16 textile mill unionists in North Carolina. The mistrial sparked 5 days of anti-union vigilante violence. Textile mill workers at Gastonia's Lorry Mill had been on strike since April 1st. They demanded higher wages and shorter work hours, union recognition, and an end to the hated stretch-out system. Soon, textile workers at Bessemer City's American Mill walked off the job in solidarity and joined the National Textile Workers Union. Ella Mae Wiggins was one of the strike leaders at American Mill. She was known for her militancy, but also for organizing black workers into the union. As the strike wore on, mill owners evicted dozens of families from company housing. Wiggins helped set up a tent city. On June 7th, sheriff's deputies attacked strikers who marched to Lorry Mill to call out remaining workers. The police arrived at the tent colony later that evening to disarm them, and Gastonia's police chief wound up dead. Immediately, more than 70 textile union members and leaders were rounded up and arrested. 16 stood trial for the murder of Chief Adderholt. The Anti-Union Committee of 100 smashed up the NTWU headquarters in Gastonia and Bessemer City. They kidnapped, beat, and threatened to kill several union members. The rampage continued as scab forces moved onto Charlotte to raid the offices of the International Labor Defense, who had handled the strikers' case. 5 days into the terror, Wiggins was killed on her way to a union solidarity rally. Outrage over her murder forced mill owners to improve conditions and wages. But the fight to organize would continue for years. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
For many people, the animals they adopt and love become more like family members than pets. We have deep relationships with cats, dogs, parrots, goats, horses, and other fellow critters who at least pretend to love us back, providing comfort and joy all around. Sadly, though, life for all of us animals is a spin around the wheel of fortune, so illness and injuries happen. That's why one of the most valued members of every community are the staffers in our local veterinarian offices. Practically all vets, nurses, technicians, and support staff are there chiefly because they love animals and get personal satisfaction from providing care for them. When I say they are there, I not only mean 9 to 5, but this group of independent health providers are committed to being there when needed, including off hours and days off, for animal misfortune and suffering don't go by clocks and calendars. Local practitioners also try to be there for low-income people, offering deferred payment plans and even discounted fees so their animals can get the treatment they need. But wait, sound the ambulance sirens. Something is going horribly wrong. This venerable profession has recently been collapsing into a corporate model of Wall Street-owned chains. They're monopolizing markets, reducing staff, gutting service, and prioritizing the love of money over the love of animals. It's not uncommon these days for frantically worried customers to bring an ill or injured pet into their old reliable vet office, only to find it has quietly come under chain ownership, is understaffed, and is unwilling to accept the patient, forcing a desperate scramble to find emergency care, often out of town. This is Jim Hightower saying the same profiteering corporate mentality that has proven disastrous for human health care is now rapidly locking down pet care, and that's an act of animal cruelty.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Yeah, I got to tell you, the Trump rally over the weekend was fun, in that it was really off the rocker. I mean, the interesting thing is not a lot of people attended. It got a lot of attention, but not a lot of people attended, at least not the way they wanted to make you believe it did. But I still find it incredible that, Trump, angry at DeSantis for stealing his stunt. That was his. He should have gotten credit for that Martha's Vineyards. That's his thing. And again, as I said, it's the cruelty that's the point. If they could have made them walk, that probably would have been even better for them. Because then Trump's made-up word caravan could have been used again. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on, just how cruel and crazy the things can get. I've asked our good friend Jeff Hauser to come talk with us. Jeff's the executive director of the Revolving Door Project at the Center for Economic and Policy Research, the revolvingdoorproject.org, their website. Jeff, thanks for taking time for us.
Anytime, Rick.
So what do you think about the craziness that we're seeing?
I think that DeSantis is a smart, manipulative, cynical figure, but that doesn't mean that he's an evil genius and that everything he does will work. He has proven that there is no depth that Trump is willing to go to that he is not himself willing to go down to. DeSantis may not be quite as innovative as Donald Trump in violating human decency, but he is an eager student. He is a more diligent worker than Trump, and he is willing to execute on the Trump vision. And that's why DeSantis is probably an even more frightening figure than Trump. I think that Trump is, there's always this debate in history that, the great man theory, like whether or not one individual matters, or is history all about trends and materialist forces and structures, and individuals are irrelevant. And obviously, it's a combination of both. But Trump moved and changed American politics, but he's no longer essential to the extreme MAGA movement. There are disciples who can take it and go further. And so we're in a very scary time in which Trump has innovated that being hateful and the evil is the point, the harm is the point. And I think DeSantis is willing to go further, and it's going to take a long time before we can put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah, and that's why I think, like in my state of Pennsylvania, why I'm focused so much on the gubernatorial race between Josh Shapiro and the Nazi Doug Mastriano. Is the reason Dr. Quack isn't doing well is he's not playing on the hate. Mastriano is playing it front and center. They're doing their whole Hitler salutes and all the kind of loyalty oath pledge stuff. I mean, it's really frightening to see, just in real time, those things you learned about in history, and you wondered how people could be so blind and duped into following a madman. Well, we're watching it, I think, in real time.
Yeah, it definitely illustrates that there are a lot of people in America who are in a not great place from a moral standpoint, that they find it appealing to see decency and decent people provoked intentionally. The trollery is the point. They want to outrage people. There's a certain sense in which people thrill to the violation of norms and decency. It is thrilling that people are angry. The fact that decent religious leaders, even if they're of anywhere normally on the ideological spectrum, find this type of behavior abhorrent, and there's a certain type of human being that responds to that finding something abhorrent and is kind of politically turned on by it. And that's a very dangerous aspect in our country. And I'd like to think, and I think we have evidence that it's not a majority of our country, but even if it's not a majority, it's a pretty substantial minority.
Yeah, it's not a majority, and it's not even a majority of the Republican Party. But I look at the fact that our elected leaders, a majority of them are following it, and a majority of them are condoning it, and a majority of them are seeking out the support of these people. That to me is even worse than the true believer QAnon kooks that spread their nonsense. It's those people who are using the useful idiots and the dupes as political power.
Yeah, there's a lot of differences in how into politics people are. That's not a novel observation, that you and I care and think about politics a lot more than other people, and in some ways we're lucky to be able to do so. And we shouldn't look down on people who pay less attention. One of the reasons you might pay attention is because you care about other people. Another reason might be that you respond to this sort of hatefulness. And so, yeah, the apathetic Republicans, the going along with it Republicans tend to be less into politics, less energized, probably don't watch Fox News 4 hours a day, probably don't listen to Steve Bannon's podcast 6 hours a day. They're not those like true believer types, but they pick up on this enthusiasm from the true believer types, and then they can kind of do with it whatever they want. They can either respond a little bit vicariously and positively, or they can just say, well, that's just, they're a little bit too into it. I don't really associate myself with that, but I still want lower taxes or whatever else they're finding satisfying in the Republican message. And so, yeah, it's those people who are not the true believer MAGA types, but the people who acquiesce to them. Those are the people we need to figure out a way to reach. And what's difficult is I think a lot of those people don't pay that much attention to politics, and fewer of them are in our social circles than before. And that's why we need a strong labor movement, is to try to increase the points of contact between decent people and apathetic people. We're never going to bring the true haters back in bulk. I mean, certainly individuals are redeemable, but in bulk, like, that's a long-term issue. But in the short run, there are some apathetic people who can be reached, but it's a lot easier to reach them with people who have organic existing ties to them.
No, I absolutely agree, and I'm right there with you. You're never going to reach the fives, but you can move some of the other folks with common sense and reality. But here's the thing. I mean, I look at the fact that every one of the messages comes back to how bad the economy is and how Joe Biden has created all this inflation, and they're doing all these horrible things, and the crime rate, it's murderous everywhere. Except yet I'm talking to people. In fact, I had a woman from Florida call, not too long ago, and say, say she was worried about, the crime and the victims, which is great. I'm glad she's thinking about the victims. And I said, do you personally have any of this? Or do you know anybody? And the answer is no. And, I think what's been going on is we've been fed this. The world is so dangerous and there's crime around every corner that we should be afraid. And the only people who can save us, because this is the message, is the Trump authoritarian type Mastrianos type MAGA folks.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack in what you said, and I agree with it all. The story, personally, it doesn't need to be true if it's viscerally, emotionally feels true, and that is really bad to feel endangered. So we have to deal with these perceptions.
I look at Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker, the senatorial candidate down in Georgia, said that he doesn't feel safe. I think it was something along the lines, he doesn't feel safe letting his wife out to walk the streets because the streets are so dangerous and people are getting shot dead. And he lives in a multi-million-dollar home in one of the most exclusive areas, I guess, in the Dallas area. Not a high crime area, but he's afraid, viscerally afraid for safety. And I'm going, is this one, BS? And it's just, playing that line to get everybody afraid? Or two, does he truly believe in and have this kind of internal fear that a lot of my Republican friends do feel, that around every corner there's a boogeyman coming to get them? And I don't know which is actually worse, whether he truly believes it or if he's making it up.
I mean, and I know it's a bit of a cheap shot, but one could definitely point to Herschel Walker's personal history with women to suggest that the greater threat to a woman is being with Herschel Walker as an empirical matter. But I think part of what makes public policy difficult is that public policy schools and law schools and whatnot teach people to think very statistically. That is not how people evolved to think. There weren't a lot of statistics available, to people more than like 100 years ago. And so anecdotes and the difference between anecdotes and data is not something that is easy. It takes a certain type of education to teach you to think like that. You might lose things in it. I'm not saying educated people know everything or are perfect, but it can be, we did not evolve to consume news. Like, you did not get bombarded with social media 300 years ago, let alone 3,000 or 30,000 years ago, in any way like you are now. And if your flow of news includes a lot of stories about violence, it's going to impact you, and your ability to really think through what are the statistical odds that anything bad is going to happen to me in a day, which honestly, often being hit by a car is going to be the greatest threat to most people in this country. If you look at out of nowhere problems that can go wrong, it's not people who are not part of the drug trade are unlikely to be shot in this country. But you might get hit by a car, but that's not how people think. But it's because society doesn't flood you with images of people getting into car accidents, but they do flood you with images of murder and mayhem.
Yeah, and stories constantly, and the same story constantly. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're with Jeff Hauser. Jeff's the executive director of the Revolving Door Project, the Center for Economic and Policy Research. Check out their website, therevolvingdoorproject.org. We'll get links out on social media. Now, I got to get some of your thoughts on, Biden did an interview on 60 Minutes, talked about the Inflation Reduction Act, talked about him, doing something on the inflation front, which we need to deal with. It's not as bad as it is really around the rest of the world. So for those people who say, Joe Biden created all this inflation, the globe is kind of struggling through all of this. I'm curious your thoughts of a direction that's going to help us address this, or can the administration deal with inflation?
There are different things that Biden can do in terms of what he talks about, and then there are different actions he can undertake. Many of the actions he can undertake can't really impact the world that quickly, but can get us in the right direction and can allow him to talk about some of the key villains in the US economy who are raising prices. If you think about the international shipping business, you have three consortiums of shipping companies that dominate the shipping of goods between different countries. And they went from making cumulatively about $1.5 billion a year in profit to roughly $300 billion of profit. And that added costs throughout the economy.
Hold on. Stop. Whoa. What was that? What were those numbers again?
So they're the big ships that bring those containers to our ports. It has been a pretty sleepy business. No one goes broke, but no one makes that much money. And their annual there are 9 companies that coordinate into 3 different consortium that make deals as collective entities, have gone from 1.5 billion a year in annual profits to 300 billion.
That's what I thought you said. From 1.5 billion to 300 billion. How do you justify that?
I mean, you basically hope that there's no one regulating you. And Congress actually did something. They passed a law early in 2022 to return some authority to this obscure federal agency. We've written about this. I had never heard about it before the last year or so. It's called the Federal Maritime Commission. We have roughly 600 members of the Marine Marching Corps Band in the U.S. government, and we have roughly 117 people in charge of regulating international shipping. And I would argue international shipping is a little bit more important to the United States. No offense to the Marines and their desire to kick up a storm, a dance, or whatever they do with their bands. And so these are people in charge of figuring out how the ports can and should be working, what's going on in pricing. And you actually have some, groups that I'm not generally that sympathetic to, like the chemical manufacturers who are up in arms with train companies. So trains are another extremely consolidated business that's become extremely profitable in the United States. So you have these shipping businesses that ship goods all across the world, not just goods from China, which we could talk about trade, but food goods. We have shipping companies that won't take stuff from America because they'd rather get back to China quicker to get more stuff to bring over. And so we had American food rotting in ports. That the line of ships at the Los Angeles port, which is doing better of late. The shipping issues have gone down, but that's just one example of many. There's clearly coordination going on between the companies that frack natural gas, especially in Pennsylvania and around the Allegheny Mountains. They are colluding. They are going on their calls to investors and doing winking and nods in public about how they're going to maintain discipline. So there's a story out there that environmentalists are raising prices for energy. And maybe I would support that. I probably do support that in many contexts, though there needs to be a transition. But that's a complicated story. That's not what's happening. If companies could drill more, but they're intentionally not bringing product to market, but they just want to stack up future permit rights now because there's public demand. But they are showing discipline, which means we are not going to increase supply, even though there's greater demand because Western Europe wants American natural gas to replace the Russian natural gas that they're no longer receiving. If they're going to exercise discipline, the U.S. government, like Joe Manchin, could be in charge of handing out permits by the dozen and nothing will change. So we need to see antitrust enforcement. We need to see enforcement of rules on international shippers. And you go on down the line, meatpacking. You need to go against these monopolists and oligopolists, these profiteering corporations. And some of this takes a long time, but Biden could be angrier. He could name these villains. He could be picking fights, and that's what we recommend.
No, I've been asking for a long time who's going to be today's Teddy Roosevelt or Harry Truman, the trust buster, and the person going after the antitrust stuff. Who's going to be that generation, this generation's fighters for the working class? And I'm hoping that Democrats come up with somebody. I'm hoping the Republicans would come up with somebody. Probably not going to happen on that side of the aisle.
Well, I mean, we've been very happy with Biden's selections for these jobs. There's a really mundane and very boring sounding reason they haven't gotten more done, which is they have almost no one working for them. It turns out that decades of neoliberal presidents of both parties, the sequester that Boehner forced upon, and somewhat too willing Barack Obama, was more Boehner's fault, and McConnell in 2011. The Federal Trade Commission has less than 1,000 employees. There are so many big law firms that have more than 1,000 attorneys. Actually, I think 1,000 is roughly like the FTC's employees. I think they have fewer than that in terms of attorneys. The Justice Department's Antitrust Division has fewer than 500 attorneys. These are all of your frontline police for what we believe is waves of corporate criminality. They don't have enough people to investigate and produce the sort of overwhelming cases needed in front of all these Trump judges. I think you can win some of these cases even with the bad judges, but they are being out-lawyered at an incredible extent. And so the federal government's budget expires at the end of September. And so our argument has been that it has to become a progressive priority to give the key law enforcement figures of the executive branch, not people who are sending black and brown people to jail, but the people who need to start sending corporate crooks to jail. We need to give those people the foot soldiers needed to actually go to court and win. Right now, they don't have them.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. And this is clearly something we're going to get into over the next several weeks. I'd love to have you come back and explain more about that. We can talk more about that because the budgeting stuff is something that has fallen away. My friend, former Congressman Bob Ney, talks about this all the time, that we used to have budget fights and we used to pass budgets. Haven't done that in a very long time. And, the whole process has kind of been just washed under the rug to where what you have is, whoever's in leadership writing this stuff in back rooms, and we don't ever get to have those debates and discussions, something we have to do. But Jeff, as always, great stuff, my friend. I look forward to having you back again real soon.
Definitely. Take care, Rick.
Thanks so much. Our good friend, Jeff Hauser, Executive Director of the Revolving Door Project. They're at the Center for Budget and Economic Policy Research. Make sure you check out their website, therevolvingdoorproject.org. We'll get links out on social media. Quick break. Right back. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1977. That was the day that is remembered in Youngstown, Ohio as Black Monday. The Youngstown Sheet and Tube Company announced plans to close its doors, laying off more than 4,000 workers. Youngstown was a steel town. During the first half of the 20th century, plants were booming. Youngstown was also a union town, a stronghold for the United Steelworkers by the 1940s. But by the 1970s, the once booming steel industry was going bust in Youngstown. More and more jobs moved overseas and to states with less union protections. Black Monday began a devastating series of plant closings. 2 years later, Briar Hill Mill closed, followed in 1980 by U.S. Steel. In 1985, it was Republic Steel's turn. By the early 1990s, the steel industry, which had once employed 40,000 people, only had 1,000 workers left in Youngstown. William Lawson, the executive director of the Mahoning Valley Historical Society, recalled the impact of the closings, saying, quote, "Over the course of my high school career, many boys and girls I had known in grade school left. some in the middle of school years, most during the summers, as their parents accepted transfers to work in other plants around the country or lost their jobs and went out in search of employment elsewhere. In 1997, the Jeanette furnace at the shuttered Briar Hill plant was dynamited, despite preservationists' efforts to save it. Bringing down the Sweet Jenny furnace became symbol of Youngstown's economic ruin, memorialized in this Bruce Springsteen song.
Here in Youngstown.
Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Sweet Jenny, I'm sinking down. Here, darling, in Youngstown.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
I think Jeff hit on a really important point there, and that is, the inflation that we're saddled with is corporate greed. I've been saying that from day one. Prices keep going up. Why? Because firms can. And it's fattening the bottom line, which is why we're seeing all of these earnings calls over the last couple of years of, hey, things are wonderful. Things are great for shareholders, but sorry, we can't give you raises. Sorry, we can't help our workers get through the inflation, which again is why I've been saying for a long time, we need to start looking at all of the horrible things that was done to our economy, which is the whole neoliberal trade, all of the consolidation, the allowing of monopolies again. Who's our Teddy Roosevelt? Who's going to come in and bust up these big companies? Who's going to come in and bring the competition that old school Republicans, I don't know, about 10 years ago, that they used to believe in and talk about? The idea that the free market should exist and that you should have multiple people competing. Remember competition? Think about the shipping industry, and that number just blows my mind. They go from a $1.5 billion profitable industry to $300 billion. Something happened there that caused that kind of profitability. Did they come up with a new widget? Did they figure out how to transport stuff magically? Did things just like Star Trek? You could just phase it to one place or another. Didn't actually have to use fuel or ships or anything. No, the answer is they're gouging our eyes out and then saying, no, Joe Biden did this. It's all Joe Biden's fault. And there are the knuckle-dragging mouth breathers out there who keep telling me, this is Joe Biden's fault. It's your opinion that it's the other things. No, it's corporate America. They're the ones who are sticking it to you. Understand that. Love to hear your thoughts. You miss any portion of the program, grab the podcast wherever you get yours. You'll find ours.
There is nothing natural about the new scale of these disasters. They are the price of humanity's fossil fuel addiction.
New UN report warns world is heading into uncharted climate territory. August 2022 was the second hottest August ever recorded. Plus,
look, folks, the Great American Road Trip is going to be fully electrified. Charging stations will be up and easy to find as gas stations are now.
President Biden touts historic climate bill and national EV charging network.
If you say so, all of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
The current fossil fuel free-for-all must end now.
Yes, we must end the current fossil fuel free-for-all. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, great news. The Earth is cooling. August wasn't that hot after all.
That would not be the way that scientists would recommend looking at the new record that NASA announced this week.
Oh, okay.
NASA announced that August 2022 was the second hottest August on record globally.
See, it's the second. Everything is getting better.
Since record keeping began in the mid-1800s, and in the wake of historic extreme heat waves across the entire northern hemisphere, NASA also confirmed that this was the hottest summer ever recorded globally in history, despite an ongoing La Nina event cooling the Pacific Ocean.
Okay, that's bad.
The UN's World Meteorological Organization has released its annual climate report in advance of the UN General Assembly in New York. The United in Science report warns that, quote, humanity's chances of avoiding the worst ravages of climate breakdown are diminishing rapidly because governments and corporations are failing to cut emissions fast enough. The new report confirms that extreme weather disasters